Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. This is Luke Johnson with AVDS. We are getting ready for our first Tips and Tricks webinar hosted by Bob Shappell. See a few more people filtering into the webinar. We'll probably give them another minute or so before we kick off. So we'll be back in just a second. All right, it looks like everyone has had a chance to get logged in. So we'll go ahead and kick it off. Like I said, good morning and welcome to the first edition of the AVDS Tips and Tricks with Bob Shappell webinar. It's going to be part of an ongoing AVDS customer education webinar series where we're providing valuable walkthroughs and how-tos for some of the most valuable and often used components and features within the Genesis PureConnect platform. We'll turn it over to Bob Shappell, our corporate trainer, to begin running through the topic and content for today, which is IC Business Manager, specifically the supervisory views, alerts, and tools for queue management within the ICBM platform. After Bob runs through the agenda for the meeting, we're actually going to turn over to a brief poll where we really value your feedback and want to get some ideas as to the topic and content for our next few sessions for the Tips and Tricks webinar series. So when Bob announces that, please take a look at the 5 options that we've got listed and select the most valuable content that you'd like to see next week. Again, there's a questions pane in the GoToWebinar tool. We're not going to break and answer every question within the webinar today so we can capitalize on the 30 minutes that we have. However, we will follow up and address every one of those questions as takeaways from this meeting. So if you have clarifications on how-tos or just another general question related to IC Business Manager, feel free to go ahead and ask us, and we'll follow up as soon as we can after this. So again, thank you for joining. This is really something for our customers, designed to be valuable for you guys, to get the most out of the platform, and get some questions answered. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Bob Shappell to take us into the webinar. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Luke. It looks like the poll was opened a little early, but it looks like it's closed again. So hopefully we can get it reopened. We will give you guys a minute or two to go ahead and select those choices if you haven't done so already as soon as I'm finished going through the agenda. So again, as Luke said, today we're going to look at supervisor views. So this is a kind of a focused part of Interaction Center Business Manager, just the supervisory capabilities. But they're up. Well, it looks like we got the poll open again. Nope, and it's closed again. All right. I apologize about that. So the supervisor views, again, we're just looking at a very narrow area. We're going to talk about how to navigate through the different views, some of my favorite views and some of the views that I picked up from different users of this platform that they like to have. Some of them will be the call activity view, the workgroup details view, and we'll go into detail on that one because that's probably one of my favorite views. Workgroup overview is a very powerful view that you can use at the end of the day, and I'll show you how that works out. Interaction details view, which is one that many people don't even know exists. And in fact, you may not even have the rights to see it because it's not by default selected for you. And so I'll show you how to get the rights to see that and what it can actually do. And then at the end, hopefully we'll have enough time to talk about one issue that a lot of people have if they log into more than one workstation, and that's a licensing issue, and I'll show you how to overcome that. So now let's go ahead and open up that poll, if we will, and this will give you an idea of some of the upcoming webinars that we're going to be offering, and we'll be taking your suggestions on what you want for the next one. In fact, we'll just basically rank them based on how you guys rank this in this poll. So, Lan, if you could open the poll, please, we can do some voting.
The poll got opened a little early, Bob, and we're going to go ahead and create another one and offer it towards the end. Only about 50% of folks got to vote on the first one, so we're going to create another one and we'll reissue it towards the end.
Okay, yeah, that's why it's so much fun when you're doing live broadcasts, because things like that happen and it makes it just so much more interesting for us afterwards. Okay, so let's move into the actual Interaction Center Business Manager. For those of you that have never used ICBM, I'm sorry about that, but this is the little icon we're going to be looking for. You double click that icon, it verifies who you are. But before you log into Business Manager, make sure, and a lot of people make a mistake with this, to log into your Interaction desktop first. Okay, the desktop has to be active because we have to tell ICBM or the Business Manager what phone you're sitting next to in case you want to monitor any calls. So when you log into your Interaction desktop, you're identifying the phone that you're working from, what station you're logged into, and then go ahead and log into Interaction Center Business Manager. Now, Business Manager, of course, as you probably know, is made up of workspaces on the left, and the workspaces you have will depend on the licensing that you've purchased and that you've invested in. And so the licenses will determine what you're going to actually see here to the left. And the views across the top could be, in fact, determined by the rights and privileges that you have. So the left-hand column, if you will, is licensing, and along the top, the different views would be your security privileges and access control privileges. So there's a lot of ways to find different views in here. You can go up to File, New, and then you got a view or a workspace. Workspace is again on the left, so you can build your own page, if you will, with different views in it. But the view is what we're looking at. What's fun and interesting and actually quite helpful is if you accidentally closed a view that you recently opened, they will be up here. So you'll be able to see the views that you last opened, the last 5 views that you opened should be available to you right here. When you create a new view, and again, another way of doing it, of course, is this drop-down menu, New View. And of course, the third way is if you're a keyboard fanatic, Control-Shift-N. So Control-Shift-N will get you a new view as well. And when you're in the Create New View dialog, you've got 2 options. You can either go by categories or by products. I highly recommend that you stick to categories, simply because this kind of filters the way you want it. I want agent and workgroup information. Maybe I want some other types of information, you know, feedback statistics or something like that. It just makes it easier to find what it is you're looking for. And of course, the views will be available down here, and you can always, if you know the name of the view, but you're not sure where you had it before, you can always put it into the search engine. So, agents and work groups, this is where you find most of the views that you're going to use in Supervisor. In my case, I like the work group details view, so I'm going to go ahead and bring that up real quick. And the work group details view, when it opens up, moved itself all the way to the right here, which is good. Gives me a lot of information, different work groups that I can go into. These are the ones that I have the rights to be able to see and see the statistics on. I also have the statistics of that work group up here, other rolled up statistics down below, and below that, I've got the queue, all the interactions that are waiting to be answered, and then the tab over to the left are the members. Who are the members of the queue that could potentially take those interactions? Now, you could have a lot of different workspaces and a lot of different views like this, but if you like to use quick keys, if you have a really, you know, that's something that you always have used in the past, then Interaction Center Business Manager gives you the quick key menus. So you can actually assign different quick keys to the different workspaces and views that you have in each workspace. A workspace is always going to be assigned with a control plus a number. So control +1, control 2, control 8, whatever it is. And those are already going to be assigned, but if you create a new view that they haven't assigned one to, then you can go ahead and assign it yourself. The different views, again, the tabs across the top are the views. The different views in the workspace are not assigned, and this is where you can assign them. And in this case, you can use Alt plus a number or Control Alt and a number. So you've got, oh, and Control Alt and a letter as well. So you've got a lot of different choices to quickly get to the various pages that you've created. And as a supervisor, you may have quite a few of them out there, and you want to get to that page quickly. So go ahead and mark it with the quick key if that's something that you enjoy using. Also, you've got the ability of building a very complex view if you need to or if you want to. So you can take maybe a directory page, and I also want to have call activity on that directory page. If you grab this tab with your left mouse button and drag it around, you'll see that you have the ability of docking it the same way that we were able to dock things in the interaction client. And you can put multiple views on each page if you need to, or if you feel that's something that would be helpful to you, so you can quickly see the different statistics on the different pages. Personally, I like the workgroup details view simply because it's docked already and it's got all of my statistics, my queue, and my members in one area, so I can quickly get to them. But a lot of people prefer to have a docked view, and you can certainly do that. Now we've got menus up here at the top, these pull-down menus that allow you to do certain things based on what you're viewing. So I've got workgroup details that I'm showing here. So I've got the workgroup details drop-down menu, and I've got a couple options I can do from here. I typically don't do that because I'll show you where I do access that kind of information. But you'll notice with the different views, your actual menus at the top will change. So it depends on what it is you want to do, what it is you need to see as to the type of pull-down menus that will be up here. And of course, we've got the ability of showing different layouts. So in my workgroup details view, I've got a classic layout here where you've got the stats at the top, and then you've got your different windows at the bottom. But don't hesitate to play around a little bit. I want the interaction queue at the top instead of at the bottom. This is more important to me. I'll have the stats here, and I'll put the members over here because I like to see the stats right at the very top. Or maybe you want the queue at the bottom and the stats split again like you did up here. Or you can do a 3-column view that allows you to get 3 different views or columns if that's the way you prefer to work with this information. With me, the classic view is fine. That's what I'm used to, so I continue to use it, and I've got all my rolled up stats here as well. So this is a workgroup details view. You can select the workgroup you're viewing from right over here because of those are the workgroups that you typically will use. Now, it's possible for you to rename this tab. In fact, you can rename any view tab that you need to by simply right-clicking, go to rename, and then select the Use Custom Title. And that way you can specify what this tab is actually showing. To me, I prefer using one workgroup details tab, and I'll show you why in just a little bit. But you can put a workgroup detail tab out for every workgroup you want if you so desire. And I would use a custom title for doing that. I think you might notice that I've got Bob's end of day stats, Bob's workgroup details. That's definitely not a default name for any of those tabs, so I renamed those myself. Now, a couple of views that people seem to use a lot, the agent or workgroup view, queue view, so you want to see just the interactions that are in that queue. But to me, I think most people usually want to see all the calls. I don't want just one particular workgroup queue or one particular agent queue. I want all the calls that are in our system. And if that's the case, you want to use call activity view. Now, a call activity view is not typically found under your work groups for your supervisor. So if I go to view agents and work groups, you're not going to see call activity. That's going to be under system status. And that's where you'll find that view. But that will give you all of your activity that's going on in the way of phone calls. It doesn't show your chats, your emails, any of the other interactions like that you're routing. But many people want to see all the calls. And this is the only way that you're able to actually do that. Now, when you're in any kind of a queue view, you absolutely have the ability of changing the columns, and you can modify that here. We'll talk about those columns in just a little bit, but any kind of a queue view can give you that information. And in this case, I can see what queue these calls are actually in when you're looking at the actual queue itself. So the call activity view is one of the favorite views I think that you'll want to use. Now, I like my workgroup details view, and the reason I named it Bob's workgroup details is because you can see it's a little bit modified from the original workgroup details that you normally get. Notice the queue tabs or the columns in the queues are different. I don't have as many statistics because I don't need them. And so once I've built this view the way I want it, with the right columns down here, I've got members with the right columns over here, and I've got my statistics narrowed down to just the ones that I want, I'm going to save this detail view, and I'm going to name it so that I don't delete it accidentally. So I can quickly change my work groups if I need to and still get all the information I want. Now, statistics. You have a ton of statistics up here, but you probably don't need them all. So don't be afraid to right-click and add or remove statistics. This gives you the list of all the statistics that you're currently seeing, and you can get rid of the ones you don't need. In this case, I don't need the total agents or how many are logged on. I do want to know how many are available, but I don't care how many who aren't available. My interest is how many are available. So using your control key, you can go ahead and select certain ones that you want to get rid of. Outbound we don't do here, so I don't care about outbound. I don't care about non-ACD. You get the idea. You can select the statistics you don't want, remove them, and that will narrow down your view so you're not overwhelmed by too many statistics in front of you. Back to my details view, you'll notice I've taken it down to just the ones that I want, but you'll also notice I'm using alerts. Many of you know about alerts. Alerts are very powerful tools that basically tap you on the shoulder if you're not paying attention and tell you that something's a little bit awry or has gone amiss, or maybe the wheels are starting to come off the track and you don't want to miss that. So you create alerts with thresholds on what it is you want to be told about. Interactions waiting is a powerful one to do alerts with. You just right-click, edit your alerts, and then you decide what the threshold is first. Now notice when you're in the Edit Alerts dialog, you can change what it is you're alerting, the statistic you're alerting, and the actual work group you're alerting from. I like to go to that work group and set it up there because I don't have to mess with these areas. But I want you to be aware that no matter where you are, when you're in an edit alert mode, you can go in and change any alert in any statistic in any work group. You don't have to actually open it up in workgroup details or any of the other statistical views that you can access this from. So you create your threshold. In this case, when it's between 2 and 4 interactions waiting, I want something to happen, and really all I'm doing is showing a little yellow ball and yellow text. But the thing is, this add action tool is very powerful because you can do many things here. Play a sound on the computer, on your computer. If you've got speakers, go ahead and use it. Send an email. Not a real proactive way of doing it, but it's a very nice way to document when you're hitting your peaks and your valleys in the different statistics that you have. If you want to run a custom handler, you've got to have a developer that knows how to actually launch that handler, but this can make the system do almost anything. But this is the one that a lot of people use. Sends a client memo to selected recipients. This causes a desktop pop-up to show up, but notice the default here says notification area message. Always change it to desktop alert when you use this. That will cause the desktop pop-up. The notification area is just the bottom bar of your client, and it kind of scrolls across there, and there's really no alerting there at all, in my opinion. So you can send this memo to various individuals or an entire work group of people. So don't be afraid if you think it's necessary for you to not only have your shoulder tapped, but also tap the shoulder of all the agents. Grab everybody in that work group and let them know there's too many calls waiting, or there's too many calls on hold, or a call has been on hold more than X amount of minutes. That's what this thing is for. It's to help you self-regulate, if you will. It proactively reaches out to the agents and lets them know, hey, we may have something that you guys can fix if you get off the phone or if you log in or whatever the situation may be. So these are the stats I want. Now, the queue statistics are rolled up right underneath it, and a lot of people don't understand current period, current shift. What does that mean? Well, a current period by default is set in the administrative interface, and by default is midnight. So really when you're looking, or shift, I'm sorry, not period, the shift times are usually midnight. So we're looking at today being current shift and yesterday being previous shift. That's your default settings. It may have been changed, and it's an administrative setting at the work group level. So you can determine if, when you're looking at these shift period statistics, then you're looking at yesterday versus today. Previous is yesterday, current is today. Period is the same thing. The period is a certain amount of time that's set. By default, it's 30 minutes. But you can ask your administrator to change that to an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours. You can decide how long that period time is. 30 minutes is a good one because that gives you a quick snapshot of how have we done in the last 30 minutes or how have we done in the last hour. So that's important when you're looking at these comparison statistics. And you'll see those comparison statistics in the service levels and in the abandon rates. And when we're looking at the different numbers here, those are also defined in the workgroup area underneath when you're managing your service levels. It's on the very first page of the workgroup queue where you manage service levels. This determines what these different numbers represent. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30, 60, minute and a half. You decide what each level is, but that's determined in the administrative interface. So below all of the statistical views, this is where all the action is. This is the actual queue itself. Now I can see the different types of interactions based on the icon that I've got here. I can see what they are. I have the ability of right-clicking if I need to, and going in and doing different activities to it there. One of the things you might want to look at is the properties of an interaction. You're able to see a lot of information, the notes that an agent may have put on that interaction, the log file, the call log file, so you can see where that interaction went when it came through the IVR. And then you can really get into the nitty-gritty with all the information that could in fact be attached to that interaction. We call those attributes. An attribute is simply a variable that is filled with some kind of a value of information. So every interaction can be bristling with this information that are the attributes of the interaction itself. And we use these attributes to be able to intelligently route the calls to the proper agents. So don't be afraid to go ahead and take a look at those if you need to. What I think is important here is the attributes that you are showing in your actual queue view. And you can change those attributes by right-clicking, and these are the columns that are available to you. I always go to more if it's available because this gives me the ability of seeing what I currently have, and I can slide on down and see what I could have. Now, many of these columns are custom. So you've got the ability of building custom columns with custom attributes that can in fact have information in them that would be helpful to you to be able to manage your queue. A couple that I think are very important would be the ACD wait reason. If this call was not immediately able to be directed to an agent, then it has to be, we have to have a reason why. The ACD engine, that's its only job. One job, it's all it has, and it's got to direct that call to an agent in an intelligent way. And if it can't do that within the very first second that it goes into the queue, we have to know why. And in this case, in these three cases, in fact, it was because we didn't have the properly skilled agents that were available. We had agents available, they just didn't have the proper skill. If there were no agents available, it would simply say no available agent. So you'll find different ACD wait reasons. This can help you in immediacy in letting you know, oh, this is why we're having a problem missing some calls. I don't have the right people scheduled in here. Interaction Analyzer, or excuse me, Interaction Optimizer also takes into consideration ACD wait reasons when it determines which agent should be scheduled. Another one that I like to have is Time in Workgroup Queue. That's not a default setting, but this tells you how long this call has been waiting in this particular queue. Duration is how long they've been in since they've hit your front door and come into your system, but they could have gone from queue to queue. So Time in Workgroup Queue is very important to know how long have they been in your care. The state of the call gives me the person's name, so I typically don't need the user, which is a default setting in here because the user is already there. And then if you're using Interaction Analyzer, you've got the ability of seeing the customer score and the agent score, as well as the skill. And I like the skills over by the ACD wait reason because I can see what skills were asked for, and then I can see, oh, water leak we didn't have. So you get to see why this call actually didn't get picked up. Again, Analyzer lets you sort by your most unhappy customer if you want to. so I can absolutely change the way that my calls are sorted, and I know the ones on tops are probably the ones that I need to be paying attention to. The next tab over here is the Members tab. The Members tab these are the people that actually are taking the calls. Now, some people don't realize, but it's possible for you. You can see these different colors occurring here. I have an alert on the time and status for these individuals. So again, right-click, edit alerts. The only thing you can do is time and status. You decide which work group. Customer satisfaction is my default. And then you simply decide which status. And notice that you've got even statuses that are not user selectable. In this situation, I want to know which the status is, which calls have gone more than a minute, which calls have gone more than 2 minutes, and which calls are more than 3 minutes. And so I've got the blue being the over a minute. It turns yellow when they've gone over 2 minutes, and then it goes bright red if they've been on the call for more than 3 minutes. It's just a setting that I wanted to have, but I want you to be aware of the fact that you can very quickly modify what you're seeing in your directory views here. And you can even directory formatting options, which allow you to do some of this kind of formatting as well when you're in a directory view. Okay, one more view that I want to show you guys. This is going to be my end of day stats. And all this is a work group overview where I selected the 3 work groups that I'm most interested in, and I can see how many interactions were answered today, how many were answered yesterday, how many were abandoned today, how many were abandoned yesterday. It's a really nice screen to go to when I very quickly want to get into what has happened at the end of the day to the queues that I'm responsible for. Now, this last work group view that I wanted to show you, and I'm going to go up to View, and this is a little different. You've got to go to Interaction Tracker, and it's called Interaction Details. As a supervisor, I just received a call from a customer, and he told me that only a few minutes ago, he called in, he talked to 3 different agents, he was put on hold at least 3 or 4 times. They all said they were going to help him, but none of them did, and to be really rude, that last agent disconnected him when he was on hold. He just got disconnected. So I need to find out, did this really happen? And I don't need to go into Recorder to do this. I can go into the Interaction Details view. I can say, okay, this is going to be today, he said. So let me go to my calendar. I'll make it the 7th. This is just all day from the 7th to the 8th. And the only thing he gave me was his phone number. And if you're putting in an address, you want to use the +1 area code and number. So be sure you put +1, the area code number he called from. That's all he knows. He doesn't know who he talked to. He doesn't know the work group he was in. Let's see how many times he actually called today. He's actually called 3 times because I practiced this. That's why. But this is the last one that he called in. I can see he was connected for 2 minutes, but he was on the line for 7 minutes. That means he was on hold at least 4 minutes. Let's go in and take a look at that interaction and look what this detail view gives you. At the very top, you've got just a quick rundown of how many times certain things happened to him. The call was recorded, and I could play it if I wanted to. I can see that it was a call simply by that interaction. But this is nice. I've got the entire segment, and these segments are also broken out in the timeline up above here. And as I work down these segments, I can see he was in the IVR 4 seconds. He was queued, and the alert went for 3 seconds. He was queued in partners group. The alert was for partner 754, and he picked up by partner 754. Now notice I can see the 3 agents that talked to him. I see the 3 work groups he was with, but he told me he was put on hold a lot, and he spent a lot of time on hold. So I can see this first hold, 1 minute and 44. Another one was 11 seconds, and then he was transferred, a local transfer. The queue was to member services. And again, I can follow the path down here, but my concern is the fact, okay, first of all, who was he? I3 partner 25. Okay, he was the last agent to have this call. He was put on hold twice. The last time he was put on hold, it ended in a local disconnect. Local disconnect simply says, okay, my agent initiated the disconnect. It was not the customer that disconnected. So my customer was correct. He did actually get put on hold, and he was, in fact, disconnected while he was on hold. Pretty unsettling for a supervisor, but at least I know who to go talk to about this, and I can call that customer back and apologize, letting him know that he was right. So the last piece, and I know we're a couple minutes over, but I do want to talk about if you've ever had the situation where you're using more than one PC. You've logged on as supervisor to this one PC. Maybe you forgot to log off. Maybe you didn't. Sometimes it doesn't matter. You go to another PC, you log on, and suddenly you don't have some of the tabs over here that you used to have, and you're wondering what happened to them. One way for you to find out what has happened to that is go up to the Tools menu and go to Module Management. Module Management gives you the actual licenses that you have, those that you've acquired, those that you don't have because they're being used somewhere else, and it will let you know what's happened, that they're being used somewhere else. And that simply tells you that because you logged on somewhere else, you used the license there and it hasn't freed it up yet. That's the best use of that module management tool that I can imagine. All right, I know we've taken us past the hour a little bit. There were a couple other things I wanted to get to. We didn't have time. One was the monitoring of different queues. It's a wonderful tool here where you can actually monitor the different queues. You can go to a user queue if you have a certain user you want to listen to. And this plays just their calls to your phone so you can listen in on them, and it continues on through that way. But I'm gonna stop the webinar now and let Luke close us out here. Luke, are you gonna say goodbye to everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Bob. What an excellent demonstration of some of those incredibly valuable features in ICBM and views. I think the fact that there's even more that you can show really segues nicely into us opening the poll up again. So for those who didn't get to vote, and even those who did, I'm just going to start from scratch and relaunch the poll for next month's webinar. Again, thank you for attending. Once we tabulate the results from the poll, we'll go ahead and begin scheduling next month's Tips and Tricks webinar. Please feel free to share the invite with anybody else in the organization that really can benefit from this. We try to blast it out to everybody we have, but obviously those teams change and grow. So please share that invite. Our goal is really to keep you guys as educated on the platform as possible, and give you content that really helps you maximize the investment in the Peer Connect platform. So again, thank you for your time. Keep an eye out for the invites for next month's webinar, and we'll address those questions as follow-ups to this meeting. Thank you guys very much, and have a great rest of the week.